He looks just like you," Millionaire's girlfriend said upon seeing Street Child, and he fainted at the sight. Michael Harrison was accustomed to social events, but that gala night in New York City would be unlike any other. His girlfriend Jessica accompanied him proudly as they left the most expensive restaurant on Fifth Avenue after a dinner that cost more than many families spent in a month. That's when she suddenly stopped on the sidewalk, gripping his arm tightly. Her eyes were fixed on a child of about 8 years old sitting on the ground, leaning against the wall of the building next to them. The boy had messy brown hair and worn-out clothes, but it was something in his face that had caught Jessica's attention. "Michael, look at that boy," she whispered, unable to hide the shock in her voice. "Jessica, we can't stop for every beggar we see on the street," he replied impatiently, trying to pull her toward the car. But she didn't move. She kept staring at the child as if seeing a ghost. "He looks just like you," she said, her voice nearly lost in the traffic noise. Michael turned his head in irritation, ready to dismiss another one of his girlfriend's meaningless comments. But when his eyes met the boy's face, his legs instantly weakened. The world around him began to spin. The same deep brown eyes he saw in the mirror every day, the same oval face shape, the same chin dimple he had always hated about himself. The resemblance was so striking it felt like a cruel joke of fate. Michael felt his chest tighten, his breath failing, and before he could process what was happening, his legs gave out completely. He collapsed right there on the ground, in front of dozens of people leaving the restaurant, fainting before all the important guests of the evening. The boy remained seated in the same spot, watching the commotion with curious eyes, unaware that his mere presence had turned a man's world upside down. When Michael woke up, he was in a private hospital bed with Jessica holding his hand and a doctor checking his vitals. The first thing he did was ask about the boy, pretending it had just been a passing discomfort. "It was just exhaustion, doctor. I've been working too much lately," he lied, trying to convince himself as much as the others. But Jessica wasn't convinced. She had seen the look on his face when he saw the child. It wasn't exhaustion. It was pure shock, as if he'd seen a ghost from the past. "Michael, you need to tell me what really happened," she said as soon as they were alone in the room. "Nothing happened, Jessica. It was a coincidence. Any child his age could resemble any adult if you force the comparison." She didn't believe a single word. She had known Michael for 3 years and had never seen him react like that to anything. Not when he lost the company's biggest contract. Not when he nearly had a heart attack at 45. "We're going back there tomorrow," she said firmly. "Back where?" "To see the boy, to help him." Michael felt a chill down his spine. The last thing he wanted was to see that child again. "Jessica, you're being dramatic. We have no obligation to street kids." "It's not obligation, it's humanity." The next morning, despite all of Michael's protests, Jessica insisted on returning to the spot. The boy was there again, in the same place, as if he were part of the urban scenery. She approached carefully, carrying a bag of food she had bought on the way. "Hi," she said, crouching to the child's level. "What's your name?" The boy looked at her warily, but answered, "Ethan." "Ethan, that's a lovely name. How old are you?" 8. Michael watched from afar, leaning against the wall across the street, feeling his heart race with every word exchanged between them. Jessica was being kind to the child, offering food and asking simple questions about where he lived. "I live with my grandma," Ethan replied, pointing to an old building a few blocks away. "She's sick and can't leave the house." "What about your mom? Your dad?" Ethan lowered his eyes. "My mom isn't here anymore. My dad. Grandma says he's important, but he never showed up." Jessica felt a tightness in her chest. She looked at Michael across the street and waved for him to come closer. Reluctantly, he crossed slowly. "Ethan, this is Michael," she said when he got close. The boy looked up and Michael once again felt that strange sensation of staring into a mirror of the past. Ethan studied him for a few seconds with childlike curiosity. "You have eyes just like mine," he said innocently. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael swallowed hard, unable to respond. Jessica noticed his discomfort and quickly changed the subject, asking Ethan if they could meet his grandmother. "She doesn't like visitors," Ethan said, "but if you're nice, maybe she'll let you." The trio walked through the streets of New York City until they reached a 3-story building with peeling paint and an air of neglect. They climbed 2 flights of narrow stairs to a wooden door with faded green paint. Ethan knocked 3 times. "Grandma, I brought some people who want to help." The door opened slowly, revealing an elderly woman with completely white hair and tired eyes. She must have been around 70, but life's hardships had aged her beyond her years. When her eyes met Michael's, her expression changed completely. "Good heavens," she murmured, pressing a hand to her chest. "Ma'am, my name is Jessica, and this is Michael. We met Ethan on the street and wanted to help in some way." Ethan's grandmother kept staring at Michael as if she'd seen a ghost. Her lips trembled before she could speak again. "Broken promises always come back to haunt us," she said softly, almost to herself. "What was that?" Jessica asked. The woman shook her head, as if snapping out of a trance. "Nothing, dear. Please come in." The apartment was tiny, with just 2 rooms. The living room also served as Ethan's bedroom, with a mattress on the floor and a few scattered toys. A pile of overdue bills sat on a small table, and the smell of medicine in the air made it clear the woman wasn't well. "Have you been sick for long?" Jessica asked gently. "Diabetes and high blood pressure. I can't work anymore, so we get by with help from neighbors, and whatever Ethan can get by asking on the street." Michael stayed silent throughout the conversation, observing every detail of the place and the child. There was something familiar, not just in Ethan's appearance, but also in his gestures, the way he tilted his head when thinking. "What about Ethan's mother?" Jessica asked carefully. The woman's expression hardened immediately. "My daughter Jennifer left us 2 years ago. Her heart couldn't take so much sadness." Ethan, who was playing with a broken toy car in the corner of the room, looked up. "Grandma always says Mommy went to live with the angels because she was too sad here on Earth." "Sad about what?" Jessica pressed, sensing there was more to the story. The grandmother looked at Michael again with unsettling intensity. "Sad because some people make promises they don't keep, because some men are too important to remember the ordinary people they leave behind." The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Michael felt those words were specifically directed at him, though he didn't understand why. He was certain he had never seen that woman or the boy before in his life. "I think we should go," he said abruptly. "But we just got here," Jessica protested. "We have commitments." Jessica sensed something was deeply wrong. Michael was visibly agitated, sweating and avoiding eye contact with Ethan or his grandmother. "Ma'am, excuse me, what's your name?" "Martha. Martha Williams." "Grandma Martha, we'd like to help Ethan. Maybe we could talk another time." "Of course, dear, but be careful with promises. Ethan has suffered enough from broken ones." When they left the building, Michael was completely silent. Jessica tried to make conversation a few times on the way to the car, but he only answered in monosyllables. "What's going on with you?" she asked once they were inside the car. "Nothing's going on." "Michael, I saw how you reacted when you saw the boy, and how his grandmother looked at you. It's like she knows you. You're imagining things." "Am I imagining that woman talking about broken promises while staring right at you? Am I imagining you turning pale when she mentioned Ethan's mother?" Michael started the car and sped off, driving in silence to the penthouse where he lived in the Upper East Side. Jessica knew pushing further wouldn't help at that moment, but she was determined to uncover the truth. That night, she scoured the internet for information about the Williams family, trying to find any connection to Michael. She didn't find anything specific, but she did come across a 2-year-old newspaper article about a woman named Jennifer Williams who had passed away at 29, leaving behind an orphaned son. The photo in the paper showed a beautiful young woman with dark hair and a sad smile. There was something familiar about that face, but Jessica couldn't place it. The next day, Michael arrived at the office earlier than usual, trying to distract himself with work. His construction company was one of the largest in New York City, and he had several important projects to review. But he couldn't focus on anything except Ethan's face. Around 10 in the morning, his secretary Amanda knocked on his office door. "Mr. Harrison, there's a child downstairs asking to speak with you." Michael's heart raced. A child? A boy? Security said he was crying in the lobby, insisting he needed to give you something important. Michael went downstairs on shaky legs. Ethan was there, holding a yellowed envelope in his small hands. His eyes were red from crying. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "My grandma said I should give this to you," he said, holding out the envelope. "She said it's important." Michael took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was an old black and white photo of a young woman smiling next to a man who looked strikingly like him, only younger. "Who is this woman?" he asked, though deep down he already knew the answer. "That's my mom," Ethan replied. "Grandma said you knew her." Michael stared at the photo for long seconds. The woman was indeed Jennifer, his girlfriend from college. They had dated for nearly 2 years when he was 22, but he never knew she had gotten pregnant. "Ethan, where did you get this photo?" "Grandma keeps it in a box with my mum's other things. She said I should show it to you." "And why did she think I needed to see it?" Ethan shrugged with the innocence only children possess. "I don't know. She just said it was important." Amanda, who had observed the entire conversation from across the lobby, approached with a strange expression on her face. "Mr. Harrison, may I speak with you privately?" "Of course. Ethan, can you wait here just a minute?" They stepped a few feet away. Amanda lowered her voice. "Sir, I know it's none of my business, but a few years ago when I first started working here, you asked me to destroy some letters that arrived in your name, letters from someone named Jennifer." Michael felt the ground give way beneath him. "Do you remember what the letters said?" "I didn't read the contents as you asked, but I remember she sent several a month. It went on for almost a year." "And I told you to destroy all of them?" "Yes, sir. You said they were from a troubled ex-girlfriend and you didn't want to receive them anymore." Michael ran a hand over his face, feeling the weight of guilt begin to settle in his chest. If Jennifer had been sending letters for an entire year, they were probably about the pregnancy and about Ethan. "Amanda, can you take Ethan to get a snack at the building's cafe? I need to make some calls." When he was alone in his office, Michael called Jessica. "Jessica, can you come to my office now? It's urgent." "Of course. Did something happen?" "Ethan is here, and I think I've discovered some things." Jessica arrived 20 minutes later and found Michael pacing back and forth in his office, visibly upset. "What happened?" Michael told her about the photo, about the letters he'd asked to be destroyed, about Jennifer. Jessica listened silently, processing the information. "Michael, do you think Ethan could be your son?" "I don't know. Jennifer and I ended things badly back then. I was focused on building the company and she wanted more attention. When she started getting clingy, I decided to cut contact completely." "Clingy? Or trying to tell you she was pregnant?" Jessica's question hit him like a punch to the gut. "I never considered that possibility." "And now, what are you going to do?" Before Michael could answer, Amanda knocked on the door. "Mr. Harrison, the boy is asking if he can come up. He said his grandmother isn't feeling well and he needs to go home." Ethan entered the room carrying a chocolate bar he'd gotten at the cafe. He greeted Jessica with a shy smile. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Ethan. How are you?" "Worried about Grandma. She wasn't feeling well when I left." Jessica gave Michael a meaningful look. "Ethan, would you like us to go with you to see your grandmother?" "You'd do that?" "Of course." The trio returned to the building where Ethan lived. This time, when they knocked, it took longer for someone to answer. When the door finally opened, Grandma Martha was visibly weak, leaning against the doorframe. "Ethan, I'm so glad you're back. I wasn't feeling well." "Grandma, the man and the lady came with me." Grandma Martha looked at Michael with that same intense expression as before. "I knew you'd come back." "Ma'am, may we come in?" Jessica asked. "You don't seem well." They entered, and Jessica helped Grandma Martha sit in an old chair. The woman was clearly weak and struggling to breathe. "Grandma Martha, you need a doctor," Jessica said. "I don't have money for a doctor, dear." "We can help with that," Michael said for the first time since they'd arrived. Grandma Martha studied him for a long moment. "Help now? After all this time?" Mom, I don't understand what you mean. You really don't remember my daughter Jennifer? I remember her. We dated a long time ago. And you don't remember the letters she sent you? Michael swallowed hard. What letters? The letters telling you she was expecting a baby. The letters asking you to at least talk to her. The letters begging you to meet your son. Ethan, who had been playing in the corner of the room, lifted his head when he heard the adults talking. Grandma, are you talking about my dad? Grandma Martha looked at her grandson with endless tenderness. Yes, my love. I'm talking about your dad. Then she turned to Michael with a mix of anger and sadness in her eyes. Jennifer wrote to you for months. She told you about the pregnancy, about how hard it was raising a child alone, about how Ethan kept asking for his father. You never answered a single letter. I never got any letters, Michael said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. That's a lie, Grandma Martha replied firmly. Jennifer had the address of your company. She sent the letters there. And sometimes she even tried to talk to you in person, but they always turned her away. Michael remembered the instructions he had given Amanda. He remembered how he had asked her to block any contact from Jennifer. At the time, he thought he was protecting himself from a persistent ex-girlfriend. Now he realized he had rejected his own fatherhood. Grandma Martha, I swear I didn't know about Ethan. Didn't know or didn't want to know? The question echoed in the small room like a gunshot. Ethan had stopped playing and was watching the conversation intently, trying to understand the complicated words of the adults. Grandma, is this man my dad? He asked with the devastating innocence of children. Grandma Martha looked at Michael, waiting for him to answer. Jessica also stared at him, waiting for a reaction. The silence stretched for long seconds. Ethan, Michael finally said, kneeling to the child's height. I think I am. Why didn't you ever come to see me before? Ethan's simple, direct question felt like a knife through Michael's chest. How could he explain to an 8-year-old that he had run from responsibility? How could he say he had been cowardly and selfish? Because I didn't know you existed, he replied, choosing the gentlest version of the truth. But now you do, Ethan said, his eyes shining with heartbreaking hope. Now I do. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Jessica offered to take Grandma Martha to the hospital that same afternoon. On the way, she tried to talk to the older woman about the past, hoping to better understand the history between Jennifer and Michael. Grandma Martha, how did Jennifer meet Michael? They studied together in college. Jennifer was in education and he was in engineering. She fell head over heels for him. And he for her? At first, yes. But when he started the company with some friends, she stopped being a priority. Jennifer was always very sensitive, very emotional. When she found out she was pregnant, she was overjoyed. She thought the news would bring them back together. But that's not what happened. No. She tried to tell him in person, but he was always busy. So she started writing letters. My daughter wasn't the pushy type, but this was about her child's future. She had every right to try. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed that Grandma Martha was having a diabetic episode and would need to stay for a few days to stabilize her medication. Ethan looked visibly worried. What if something happens to Grandma? He asked Jessica as they waited in the hallway. Nothing's going to happen, Ethan. Your grandma just needs some medicine and rest. But what if it does? I don't have anyone else. Jessica glanced at Michael, who was sitting in a chair nearby, lost in thought. Ethan, now you have your dad, she said softly. But he doesn't really know me yet. What if he doesn't like me? Michael looked up when he heard those words. The insecurity in Ethan's voice made him realize that, besides discovering he had a son, he also discovered that this son was afraid of being rejected again. Ethan, come here, he called. The boy approached timidly. I know this is all very confusing and scary. It is for me too, but I want you to know one thing. Liking you won't be the problem. The problem will be me learning how to be a good dad. Do you think you can learn? I'll try really hard. Ethan smiled for the first time since they had arrived at the hospital. "Can I ask you something?" the boy said. "Of course." "Why didn't you want to meet my mom when she was pregnant?" Ethan's question hit Michael like a punch to the gut. How do you explain cowardice to a child? "Ethan, sometimes adults make really big mistakes. I made a really big mistake when I didn't want to listen to your mom. If I could go back in time, I'd do everything differently." "Did you like my mom?" "Yes, I did. Your mom was a very special person. Grandma Martha says she was really sad because of you." Michael felt as if he'd been punched. The guilt that had been growing in his chest since he first saw Ethan now turned into real physical pain. "Ethan, I'm so sorry for making your mom sad. If I had known... But now you know about me. Does that mean I won't be sad like she was?" "No, Ethan, you won't be sad. I promise." Jessica watched the conversation between father and son with a mix of emotion and apprehension. Michael was being honest with Ethan, but she knew promises to children were serious things. She hoped he understood the weight of what he was promising. When they finally got home that night, Michael was completely silent. Jessica tried to start a conversation a few times, but he seemed lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she asked when they arrived at his apartment. "I'm thinking about how my life completely changed in 2 days. How are you feeling about all this?" Michael poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat on the couch in the spacious modern living room, a brutal contrast to the tiny room where Ethan had lived. "I feel guilty, confused, scared." "Guilty about what?" "For ignoring Jennifer for so long, for missing 8 years of my son's life, for causing so much pain for him and his mother." "Michael, you can't go back in time, but you can decide what to do from now on. What if I don't know how to be a dad? What if I disappoint Ethan like I disappointed Jennifer?" Jessica sat beside him on the couch. "The fact that you're worried about that already shows you've changed. The Michael from 8 years ago wouldn't have had that concern." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I saw you with Ethan today. I saw how you looked at him, how you tried to answer his tough questions honestly. The Michael I met 3 years ago probably would have run from the whole situation. And you? How are you feeling about all this?" Jessica took a moment to respond. "I'm surprised, but I'm not upset if that's what you're asking." "Why not?" "Because I saw a side of you today that I'd never seen before, a more human side, more vulnerable. And because Ethan is an amazing kid." "Jessica, I'd understand if you wanted to end our relationship. This changes everything between us." "It does, but not necessarily for the worse." Michael looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time for you to stop running from responsibilities and start building something real in your life. Something beyond money and professional success." That night, Michael slept poorly. He dreamed of Jennifer, of the letters she had sent that he never read. He dreamed of Ethan asking why his father never showed up. He woke up several times with a tightness in his chest. The next morning, he called the hospital to check on how Grandma Martha was doing. The nurse said she'd had a quiet night but would need to stay hospitalized for at least 3 more days. "And the child who was with her yesterday?" Michael asked. "I'm not authorized to share that information, sir." "Are you family?" "I'm the child's father." The words came out naturally, as if he'd been saying them for years. It was the first time he'd referred to Ethan as his son out loud. Michael stopped by the hospital before heading to the office. Ethan was sitting in a chair beside his grandmother's bed, swinging his short legs that didn't quite reach the floor. "Hi," Michael said from the doorway. "Hi," Ethan replied with a shy smile. "How was your grandmother last night?" "Better. The doctor said she'll be okay, but she has to take her medicine right." "And you? How did you sleep?" "Not great. I'm not used to sleeping without Grandma nearby." Michael felt a pang in his chest. Ethan was an 8-year-old boy who had spent his whole life caring for a sick grandmother and dealing with his father's absence. And yet, he was polite, resilient, and sweet. "Ethan, do you want to come with me today? I can take you to school." "I'm not enrolled in any school," Ethan answered, lowering his eyes. "Why not?" Grandma doesn't have money for supplies, uniforms, all that stuff, and she can't take me because she's always sick. Another stab of guilt hit Michael. His 8-year-old son wasn't in school because of a lack of resources, something he could have easily provided. "Ethan, would you like to go to school?" The boy's eyes lit up. "So much. Grandma always says studying is important. She teaches me some things at home, but I'd love to go to a real school. Then we'll take care of that today." "Really? Really?" Grandma Martha, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "Michael, are you sure about what you're doing?" "What do you mean?" "You're making promises to a child who's already been let down once. If you don't plan to follow through, it's better not to promise at all." "I do plan to follow through. And when you get tired of playing dad, when the novelty wears off, what happens to Ethan then?" Grandma Martha's question was harsh but fair. Michael understood she was protecting her grandson the same way she'd tried to protect her daughter years ago. "Grandma Martha, I know I have a lot to prove to you. I know I don't deserve your trust after everything that happened, but Ethan is my son and I won't abandon him. Your daughter was important to you too, and you abandoned her. I was a stupid, selfish kid back then. I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to be different now." Ethan watched the adults' conversation, trying to understand the complicated words, but sensing the tension in the air. "Grandma, let him try," he said, with the simple wisdom of children. "If it doesn't work out, at least I'll know I tried to get to know my dad." Grandma Martha looked at her grandson with tears in her eyes. "You're right, sweetheart. But if he hurts you, I'll never forgive him." "I won't hurt Ethan," Michael said firmly. "I promise." "Broken promises always come back to haunt us," Grandma Martha repeated the words she'd said at their first meeting. Michael spent the rest of the morning with Ethan, taking him to buy new clothes, school supplies, and lunch. The boy was amazed by everything, asking questions about each thing he saw. "Why do you have so much money?" Ethan asked when they were in an expensive clothing store. "Because I work hard and own a big company." "What kind of company?" "Construction. I build buildings, houses, things like that." "You build the houses people live in?" "Some of them, yeah." Ethan grew thoughtful for a moment. "Could you build a better house for me and Grandma?" Ethan's innocent question made Michael realize just how precarious his son's life was. They lived in a tiny, unsafe space with no privacy or security. "Ethan, how about you both move into a house I already have ready?" "Really? A house just for us?" "A house just for you. With a backyard?" "With a backyard." Ethan started jumping for joy in the store, drawing the attention of other customers. Michael felt good seeing his son happy, but he also felt the weight of the responsibility he was taking on. When they returned to the hospital that evening, Grandma Martha was awake and feeling a little better. Ethan excitedly told her about the shopping, the new school, and the house with a backyard. "Slow down, Ethan," she said. "We can't accept so much help." "Why not, Grandma?" "Because," she looked at Michael, "because sometimes people do things out of guilt, not love. And when the guilt fades, things change." Michael understood he had a long road ahead to earn Grandma Martha's trust, and he couldn't blame her for being wary. "Grandma Martha, I completely understand your concern, but I'd like to propose something." "What?" "Give me a chance to prove my intentions are genuine. I'm not doing this out of guilt. I'm doing it because Ethan is my son and I want to take care of him. And how do you plan to prove that? By being present, by staying consistent, by keeping every promise I make to him." Grandma Martha studied Michael's face for several long seconds. "All right, but on one condition." "What?" "If you disappear from Ethan's life, if you abandon him like you abandoned Jennifer, I'll make sure he understands exactly what kind of man you are." "I accept that condition. And one more thing." "Go on." "I want to meet this girlfriend of yours. If she's going to be part of Ethan's life, I need to know what kind of person she is." Michael nodded. That night, he called Jessica and told her about the conversation with Grandma Martha. "She wants to get to know me better?" Jessica asked. "She wants to make sure you won't have a negative influence on Ethan's life." "And what do you think about that?" I think it's fair. Ethan's had enough abandonment in his life. Grandma Martha is just protecting him. Michael, are you sure you really want to take on all this responsibility? Being a father isn't a joke. Jessica, for the first time in my life, I'm absolutely certain about something. I want to be Ethan's father, even if it completely changes our lives, especially because of that. The next day, Jessica went with Michael to the hospital. Grandma Martha greeted her politely but with obvious coldness. "So you're his girlfriend," she said. "Yes, Grandma Martha. It's a pleasure to meet you." "The pleasure is mine. Ethan told me you've been very kind to him. Ethan is a wonderful child. Anyone would be kind to him. Not everyone. Many people look at poor children like Ethan and pretend not to see them. I'm not one of those people." Grandma Martha watched Jessica closely, studying her reactions, her posture, how she interacted with Ethan. "Do you have children?" she asked. "No, I don't. Do you want any?" "I've never really thought about it, to be honest." "And now that Michael has a son, does that change anything?" Jessica took her time answering, choosing her words carefully. "It does, but not necessarily for the worse. Ethan is a special child, and if Michael is determined to be his father, I fully support it." "Supporting is different from accepting," Grandma Martha observed shrewdly. "Then I accept it too." "You accept sharing your boyfriend's attention with an 8-year-old? Grandma Martha, if I may be honest, Michael needed something to humanize him. He used to live only for work and money. Meeting Ethan might be the best thing that ever happened in his life. And in yours?" "In mine too." Grandma Martha relaxed a bit after that conversation. She realized Jessica was sincere and genuinely cared about Ethan. "All right," she finally said. "Let's give it a try." In the following days, while Grandma Martha finished her treatment at the hospital, Michael and Jessica took turns staying with Ethan. They took him to visit a private school near downtown, where he could study with a full scholarship Michael had secured. Ethan was amazed by the school. It was completely different from anything he'd ever known. Spacious classrooms, a library, a sports field, a computer lab. "Am I really going to study here?" he asked Michael. "Yes, you are. Starting Monday." "And will the other boys like me?" "Why wouldn't they?" "Because I'm different from them. I'm poor." Ethan's observation made Michael realize that having the money to pay for school was only part of the problem. Ethan would need to adjust to a whole new world with kids who lived a very different reality from his own. "Ethan, being poor or rich isn't what decides whether people will like you. What matters is being a good, kind, and respectful person, and you're all of those things." "How do you know?" "Because I see how you treat your grandma, how you talk to people, how you behave. You're a very special boy." Ethan smiled, but Michael could tell he was still unsure. "What if I can't keep up in class? What if I'm too far behind?" "Then we'll study together until you catch up with the other boys." "Do you know how to teach?" "I'll learn." That night, Michael realized being a father was much more complicated than he'd imagined. It wasn't enough just to provide money and resources. Ethan needed emotional security, confidence, someone who believed in him. When Grandma Martha was finally discharged from the hospital, Michael had found a small but comfortable home in a safe neighborhood, not too far from Ethan's school. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a small backyard with a few fruit trees. "Is this really for us?" Ethan asked when they saw the house for the first time. "Yes, it is." "And can I plant something in the yard?" "You can plant whatever you want." Ethan ran around the backyard, imagining where he could start a garden, where he could play, where he could study when the weather was nice. Grandma Martha walked through the house in silence, taking in every detail. There was simple but good quality furniture, working appliances, a bathroom with a glass shower and hot water. "This is too much," she finally said. "What do you mean, too much?" Michael asked. "We don't need all this. A simple place would have been enough." "Grandma Martha, I can afford this. Why should Ethan live somewhere simpler when there's no need?" "Because I don't want him getting used to luxury and then being left high and dry when you decide to walk away." "I already told you I'm not walking away." "You said that, but men say a lot of things." Jessica, who had been listening, decided to step in. "Grandma Martha, can I ask you something? Of course. What does Michael need to do for you to trust him? Grandma Martha thought for a few seconds. Time, consistency, and for him to be there not just in the good moments, but also when Ethan needs discipline, when he's sick, when he has trouble at school. A real father doesn't run when things get hard. Then let's make a deal, Jessica suggested. Give him 6 months. If he proves he's trustworthy in that time, you stop questioning his intentions. If he lets Ethan down, we'll help him find another place to live ourselves. Grandma Martha looked at Jessica with respect. You're smarter than I thought. I only want what's best for Ethan, and I believe Michael does too. All right, 6 months. The move to the new house happened on a Saturday morning. Michael and Jessica helped carry the few belongings Grandma Martha and Ethan had. It wasn't much, some clothes, some medicine, the box with Jennifer's keepsakes, and a few of Ethan's broken toys. Can I throw these toys away and buy new ones for Ethan? Michael asked Grandma Martha. No, these toys have history. Some were given by his mother, others by neighbors. Ethan doesn't need expensive toys, he needs to cherish the ones he has. Michael understood the lesson. It wasn't about replacing Ethan's past, but about building a better future, while preserving what was important from his story. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. During the first week at his new school, Ethan came home every day with stories to tell. He was trying hard to keep up with classes and make friends. How was it today? Michael asked every afternoon when he picked Ethan up. Tough. The boys know a lot of things I don't, but the teacher said I'm smart, and we'll catch up soon. What about friends? There's a boy named Brandon who's nice. He lent me his book when I forgot mine. Any problems? Ethan hesitated before answering. Some boys ask where my mom is, and why my dad never showed up at school before. Michael felt a pang in his chest. He knew sooner or later Ethan would have to face tough questions about family. What do you tell them? That my mom went to live with the Angels, and that my dad was traveling a lot for work, but now he's back to stay with me. Ethan's answer showed remarkable maturity for an 8-year-old. He was protecting Michael's feelings while dealing with his own pain. Ethan, you don't have to lie about that. If anyone asks about our family, you can tell the truth. What truth? That your mother left us 2 years ago, that I didn't know you existed, but now we're getting to know each other. What if they think it's weird? All families are different, Ethan. What matters is that we're together now. A month after school started, the school called asking Michael to meet with the guidance counselor. Did something happen? He asked worriedly. Nothing serious. The counselor just wants to talk about Ethan's progress. Michael arrived at school with his heart racing. What if Ethan wasn't adjusting? What if he'd caused trouble? The counselor, a woman in her 50s, greeted him warmly. Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming. I'd like to talk about Ethan. Did he do something wrong? Quite the opposite. Ethan is one of the most special children we've ever had here. Michael sighed in relief. What do you mean by special? He has an incredible determination to learn. He always arrives before the other students, stays after class to ask questions, and helps classmates who struggle in subjects he's already mastered. That's good, isn't it? It's wonderful. But it also worries me a little. Why? Because Ethan pushes himself too hard, as if he's afraid of disappointing someone. Yesterday he had a fever and still didn't want to leave school. Michael immediately understood what was happening. Ethan was trying so hard because he was afraid of being abandoned again. He thought if he wasn't perfect, Michael might give up on him. What do you suggest I do? Talk to him, make it clear your love doesn't depend on his grades or perfect behavior. Children who have experienced abandonment often feel they need to earn affection. That evening, Michael had a serious talk with Ethan. Ethan, can I ask you something? Of course, but why do you try so hard in school? Because I want you to be proud of me. Ethan, I'm already proud of you, not because you get good grades, but because you're my son. Even if I get bad grades, even if you get bad grades, even if I do something wrong, Ethan, being a father and son isn't a transaction. I won't stop loving you if you're not perfect. I'll always love you, no matter what happens. Ethan threw himself into Michael's arms, finally releasing the tension he'd been carrying for weeks. "I was afraid you'd leave if I wasn't good enough." "Never. I'll never leave." "Promise?" "I promise." As he hugged his son, Michael realized Ethan wasn't the only one learning to trust. He was also learning to open up, to be vulnerable, to put someone else's needs before his own. 2 months later, during a family dinner at their new home, Grandma Martha made an observation that surprised everyone. "Michael, I think you're changing." "How so?" "You're more human, more present, not just with Ethan, but with people in general." "Have you noticed it too?" Jessica asked. "At the office, the staff says he's more patient, more willing to listen." "Being a father changes you," Michael said. "I'm seeing the world through Ethan's eyes, and it's a completely different perspective." "How so?" Ethan asked curiously. "When you tell me about your day at school, about your friends, about your worries, I remember what it's like to be a child. I remember what really matters." "And what really matters?" Grandma Martha asked. "Being present, being dependable, giving love without expecting anything in return." Ethan smiled. "You're turning into a real dad," he said. "I'm trying. You're succeeding." That night, after Ethan went to sleep, Michael and Jessica talked in the backyard. "How are you feeling about all this?" he asked. "Good. Better than I expected, actually." "Why?" "Because you're becoming the man I always knew you could be. You just needed a reason to let your guard down." Ethan taught me that running from problems doesn't make them disappear. It only makes them grow. "And now? What are your plans?" "Keep learning how to be a father, keep building Ethan's and Grandma Martha's trust, and keep building our life together if you want." Jessica smiled. "I do." 3 months after first meeting Ethan, Michael got an unexpected call at the office. It was Ethan's school principal. "Mr. Harrison, I need to speak with you urgently." "Did something happen to Ethan?" "Not exactly. Can you come here?" Michael cancelled all his afternoon meetings and rushed to the school. When he arrived, he found Ethan sitting in a chair in the principal's office, looking worried. "What happened?" he asked. "Ethan got into a fight," the principal explained. "Ethan fought?" Michael was surprised. Ethan was a calm and polite boy. "Actually, he stood up for another student," the principal continued. "A new boy who was being teased by some classmates. When they started pushing him, Ethan stepped in." "And then?" "Ethan told the boys to stop, that no one deserved to be treated like that. When they didn't stop, he stood in front of the new boy to protect him." Michael looked at Ethan with a mix of pride and concern. "Ethan, you shouldn't get into fights." "But they were hurting Tyler," Ethan replied. "He's new at school and doesn't have friends yet." "I remembered what it was like when I was new here and some boys looked at me funny." "And what exactly did you do?" "I said if they wanted to pick a fight with Tyler, they'd have to fight me too." Then they stopped. The principal smiled. "Ethan didn't use any violence. He simply stood up as his classmate's protector. It was an act of courage and solidarity." "So why did you call me?" "Because we wanted you to know what kind of person Ethan is, and because we think he deserves recognition for what he did." Michael felt his chest swell with pride. Ethan was becoming the kind of person he himself would want to be. "Ethan, you did the right thing," he said. "Really. I wasn't going to start a fight, but Tyler was scared. You did exactly what I would have done. Protected someone who needed help. Grandma always says we have to look out for those who are hurting." "Your grandma's right." When they got home that afternoon, Grandma Martha was in the kitchen making dinner. Ethan told the whole school story, dramatizing every detail. "You did the right thing, my grandson," she said proudly. "Your mother would be so proud of you." "Do you think she can see us from where she is?" Ethan asked. "I'm sure she can, and I think she's happy seeing you have a real father now." Ethan looked at Michael. "You're my real dad, right?" "Yes, Ethan, forever." "Even when I grow up?" "Even when you grow up. A father is for life." That night, Michael called Jessica to tell her about the school incident. "Ethan stood up for a classmate who was being bullied," he said with pride in his voice. "That doesn't surprise me. Ethan has a huge heart." Jessica, I've been thinking, what if we made our situation official? What do you mean official? Get married. Become a real family. Jessica was silent for a few seconds. Michael, are you proposing to me? I am. Not in the traditional way, but I am. And do you think we're ready for this? I don't think we'll ever be completely ready, but I know I want to build a life with you and Ethan. And Ethan? What does he think? I haven't talked to him yet. I wanted to know your answer first. My answer is yes. Really? Really. But with one condition. What? Ethan has to approve too. And Grandma Martha. Deal. The following weekend, Michael organized a special lunch at home. He insisted on cooking himself, making Ethan's favorite dish, spaghetti with bolognese sauce. Why are you cooking? Ethan asked curiously. You don't even know how to cook, right? I'm learning, and today's a special day. Why? Because I have an important question to ask you all. Grandma Martha and Jessica exchanged glances, already suspecting what was coming. After lunch, Michael asked everyone to sit in the living room. Ethan, Grandma Martha, you know I love you both very much, right? We know, Ethan answered. And you know I love Jessica too. We know, Grandma Martha said. So I wanted to ask what you think about the idea of Jessica marrying me and officially becoming part of our family. Ethan's eyes widened. Would she be my stepmom, if you want her to be? And would she live here with us, if you agree? Ethan looked at Jessica. Do you really want to marry my dad? I do, Ethan, but only if you're okay with it. And will you like me forever? I'll like you forever. Even when I do something wrong? Even when you do something wrong. Ethan thought for a few seconds, then turned to Grandma Martha. Grandma, what do you think? I think Jessica is a good woman, and you both deserve to be happy. Then I agree, Ethan said. But can I make one request? Of course, Michael replied. Can I call Jessica Mom? Jessica felt her eyes fill with tears. Would you like to call me Mom? I would. I know you're not my real mom, but you take care of me like you are. Ethan, I'd be honored if you called me Mom. That afternoon, they began planning a simple wedding, a ceremony that would be more a celebration of the family they'd built than a traditional event. I want it to be in a small church, Jessica said, with just a few people, only those who matter to us. And I want Ethan to be my best man, Michael added. Really? Ethan asked excitedly. Really? You're the most important man in my life after myself. Can I wear a suit like yours? Of course you can. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan asked a question that caught Michael off guard. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Can you tell me about my mom? Michael felt a tightness in his chest. Ethan rarely spoke about Jennifer, and he'd never pressed the subject. Your mom was a very special person, Ethan. What do you mean, special? She was kind, loving, and cared about everyone, just like you. Did you love her a lot? I did. Very much. Why did you split up? Michael thought carefully before answering. Ethan deserved the truth, but one suited to his age. Because I was young and foolish, and I didn't know how to appreciate the good people in my life. Do you regret it? I regret not knowing you sooner. I regret that your mom was sad. But I don't regret you existing. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Really, really. Ethan was thoughtful for a few minutes. Dad, do you think my mom would be happy seeing you, me, and Jessica together? I'm sure she would. Your mom only wanted you to be happy and to have a family who loved you. Then it's okay. It's okay. The wedding took place on a Saturday morning in a small church in downtown New York City. Only Grandma Martha, a few close friends of Michael and Jessica, and Ethan's closest schoolmates were there. Ethan beamed in his new suit, carrying the rings with the solemnity of a child who understood the moment's importance. When the priest asked if anyone wanted to say something before the ceremony, Ethan raised his hand. Can I speak? The priest smiled. Of course, son. Ethan stood at the altar between Michael and Jessica. I want to thank my dad for finding me and my new mom for accepting our family. And I want to thank my grandma for taking care of me until they came. And I want to thank my mum, who's with the angels, for making me look so much like my dad that Jessica recognized me that day on the street. Not a single eye in the church was dry. Ethan's simplicity and sincerity moved everyone deeply. After the ceremony, during the small reception at home, Grandma Martha approached Michael. "You did it," she said. "Did what?" "Proved you've changed. Proved you deserve Ethan. I'm still learning. Every parent is always learning. What matters is not giving up." "I'll never give up. I know. Now I know." 6 months after the wedding, Ethan had fully settled into his new life. His grades improved significantly, he'd made many friends, and he'd joined the school soccer team. One afternoon he came home with news. "Dad, Mum, can you come to school next week?" "Of course," Jessica replied. "Is there a special event?" "There's a presentation about family. Each student will talk about theirs." "And you want us there?" "Yes, because I want to tell everyone how you found me and how we became a real family." "Are you sure you want to share our story?" Michael asked. "I'm sure. Because our story is beautiful. It's about people who got lost and found each other. It's about second chances." "Second chances? You got a second chance to be a father. I got a second chance to have a family. And Jessica got a second chance to be a mother." The wisdom of Ethan, at just 9 years old, constantly amazed the adults around him. During his school presentation, Ethan told his family's story in a simple yet touching way. He spoke about the mother who had left, the father who hadn't known he existed, the grandmother who raised him with love, and how fate had conspired to bring them together. "My family might not be like everyone else's," he concluded his presentation, "but it's perfect for me." By the end, the whole class applauded. Several classmates came up to say they thought his story was amazing. "Ethan, aren't you embarrassed to say your dad didn't know you existed?" one classmate asked. "Why would I be embarrassed? He didn't know, but when he found out, he came for me. That's nothing to be ashamed of, it's something to celebrate." That night at dinner, Michael reflected. "You know, Ethan, you taught me something really important." "What?" "That it doesn't matter how a story starts. What matters is how it continues and how it ends." Is our story ending? No. Our story is just beginning. The hard part is over. Now comes the good part. What good part? The part where we live happily ever after. Ethan smiled. Like in fairy tales? Better than fairy tales, because in fairy tales we only imagine. In our life we really live it. A year after the wedding, the family had settled into a happy, stable routine. Michael had learned to balance work and family, never missing another important event in Ethan's life. Jessica had fully embraced her role as a mother, actively involved in the boys' school and social life. Grandma Martha, now in stable health, had become the official grandmother of a family that deeply respected and loved her. Ethan was in 4th grade, excelling both academically and in sports. But more important than any external achievement was the emotional security he had developed. He no longer feared being abandoned or felt he had to be perfect to deserve love. During a bedtime conversation, Ethan made an observation that deeply moved Michael. "Dad, you know you're my hero." "I am. Why?" "Because you didn't give up when you found out you had a son. A lot of men would have run away, but you stayed and learned how to be a dad. Ethan, you're the one who taught me how to be a dad, and a better person." "How?" "Before I met you, I only thought about myself, about making money, about being successful. You taught me there are more important things." "Like what?" "Family, love, being there for the moments that matter. I taught you that." "You did. Just by existing, you taught me that." Ethan grew thoughtful for a few minutes. "Dad, do you think I'll be a dad someday too?" "If you want to be, you'll be an excellent one." "How do you know?" "Because you've learned what's important. You know being a dad isn't just about money and gifts. It's about being there, listening, supporting, loving unconditionally. I'll remember that when I grow up. I'm sure you will." 2 years later, when Ethan turned 10, the family decided to throw a special party, not just to celebrate his birthday, but to honor the journey they'd taken together. During the party, Michael gave a speech that moved everyone. 2.5 years ago, I thought I knew what mattered in life. I thought success was measured in money and power. Then an 8-year-old boy walked into my life and turned everything upside down. He looked at Ethan, who was sitting beside him. Ethan taught me that true wealth isn't in the bank. It's in the moments we share with the people we love. It's in watching my son learn something new. It's in listening to the stories he tells about his day at school. It's in knowing that when he has nightmares, he calls for me to stay with him until the fear passes. The guests at the party listened in silence, moved by the sincerity of his words. Ethan also taught me that it's never too late to change, to grow, to become the person we want to be. He gave me a second chance to be a father, and I hope I'm making the most of that chance. Ethan stood up and hugged Michael. You are, Dad. You're the best dad in the world. And you're the best son in the world. During the party, as she watched Ethan playing with his friends, Jessica reflected on how their lives had changed. She had first known Michael as a successful but emotionally distant man. Now he was whole, someone who had learned to value what truly mattered. What are you thinking about? Grandma Martha asked, walking up to her. I'm thinking about how perfect all of this is. Perfect how? Ethan has the father he always wanted. Michael has become the man he always had the potential to be. And I discovered I could be a mother in a way I never imagined. And I gained a family I never thought possible, Grandma Martha added. It's true. We all gained something. You know what I find most beautiful in all of this? Grandma Martha asked. What? That you've proven family isn't just about blood. It's about choice. Michael chose to be Ethan's father. You chose to be his mother. Ethan chose to trust you. And I chose to give Michael a second chance. And it worked. It worked better than we hoped. It became a love story. That night, after all the guests had left and Ethan had gone to sleep, Michael and Jessica sat in the backyard, looking at the stars. Do you regret anything? He asked. About agreeing to marry you? No, about embarking on this whole adventure. Never. It was the best decision I've ever made. Even with all the complications? Even knowing Ethan will always come first? Especially because of that. You became a better man because of Ethan, and I became a better person because of both of you. I love you, Michael said. I love you too. And Ethan? Ethan is my son. It doesn't matter that I didn't carry him for 9 months. He's my son in my heart. Do you think Jennifer would be happy seeing Ethan now? Jessica thought for a few seconds. I think so. Ethan is a happy, secure, loved boy. That's all a mother could want for her child. Sometimes I feel guilty for being happy when she isn't here to see Ethan grow up. Michael, guilt won't bring Jennifer back, but love and care will help Ethan grow up strong and happy. That's what she would have wanted. You're right. 3 years later, Ethan was 13 and in 8th grade. He had become a responsible, caring, and determined teenager. His grades were still excellent. He had been elected class representative, and he participated in several extracurricular activities. But most importantly, he had developed a strong personality and solid character. He still stood up for classmates who were bullied, helped with volunteer work organized by the school, and treated everyone with respect and kindness. Ethan is turning into a fine young man, Grandma Martha remarked one afternoon, watching her grandson help an elderly neighbor carry groceries. He really is, Michael agreed with pride, and he's a better man than I was at his age. You taught him important values. Actually, I think he taught me important values. That afternoon, Ethan came home with special news. Dad, Mom, Grandma, I have something to tell. What is it? Jessica asked. The school chose 3 students to participate in a week-long exchange program with a school in Washington, D.C., and I was one of them. Ethan, that's amazing, Michael said. When would it be? Next month, but only if you let me go. Of course we will, Jessica replied. You deserve this opportunity. And you won't worry about me being away. We'll worry, Michael admitted, but we'll also be proud. And we trust you. Trust is really important, Ethan said. You're the one who taught me that. How so? When you promised you'd never abandon me, even though you didn't really know me yet, you trusted that you'd learn to be my dad, and I trusted that you'd keep your promise. And it worked out. It worked because we trusted each other. During the week Ethan was in Washington, D.C., Michael realized just how much he missed his son. He called every day to check on him, asking about the activities and whether he was having fun. "You're more anxious than a first-time mum," Jessica teased. "I really am. I never imagined I'd miss him this much. That's how parents feel. Ethan is part of you now. He always was, I just didn't know it. When Ethan returned from Washington, D.C., he was full of stories and had a new maturity in his eyes." "How was it?" Michael asked eagerly. "Amazing. I met so many new people, visited important places, and learned about politics and U.S. history." "What did you like the most?" "Seeing how big and diverse the United States is, and realizing how lucky I am to have the family I have." "How so?" "Some kids there had complicated families, parents who didn't care about them, who only demanded good grades but never showed affection. I realized our family is special." "What makes our family special?" "Real love, support, and second chances." That night, as Ethan shared details of the trip with Grandma Martha, Michael reflected on the journey they'd taken together, from a chance meeting on a sidewalk in New York City to becoming a strong, happy family. "What are you thinking about?" Jessica asked. "I'm thinking if someone had told me this story 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it." "Why?" "Because it's a story about transformation, about people who completely changed because of love." "You really have changed," she agreed. "Ethan has too. When I first met him, he was an insecure little boy afraid of being abandoned. Now he's a confident, happy teenager." "And I've changed too," Jessica added. "I never thought I could love a child the way I love Ethan. Our whole family has changed. Even Grandma Martha has changed." "How so?" "She was bitter after losing her daughter, afraid to trust anyone again. Now she's a happy, fulfilled grandmother." "It's true. We've all been transformed by love." The next day, Ethan asked a question that surprised Michael. "Dad, can I ask you a favor?" "Of course." "Can you take me to visit my mum's grave?" Michael felt a tightness in his chest. Ethan had never asked this before. "Of course I can, but can I ask why?" "Because I want to tell her about our family. I want her to know you kept the promise you didn't even know you'd made." "What promise?" "To take care of me. To be my dad." The following Saturday, they went to the cemetery where Jennifer was buried. Ethan brought a bouquet of yellow flowers, which Grandma Martha said were her daughter's favorite. Standing before the simple grave, Ethan knelt and began speaking as if Jennifer could hear him. "Hi, Mum. It's me, Ethan. I brought my dad so you could meet him. I know you two knew each other before, but he's different now. He learned what it truly means to be a father." Michael was moved by his son's words. "Mum, I want you to know that I'm really happy. I have the father I always wanted, a new mother who loves me, and Grandma is in good health. We're a real family now." Ethan paused, as if listening for a response. "Mum, I promise I'll always remember you and the values Grandma Martha taught me. I'll be a good man, just like you wanted me to be." When he finished, Ethan stood up and turned to Michael. "Do you want to say something to her now?" Michael knelt before the grave, overwhelmed with emotion. "Jennifer, I'm so sorry for not being the man you deserved when we were young. I'm sorry for not listening when you tried to tell me about Ethan, but I promise I'll take care of him for the rest of my life. I'll be the father he deserves and the one you always wanted him to have." As they left the cemetery, Ethan seemed lighter, as if he'd closed an important chapter. "How do you feel?" Michael asked. "Good. I feel like my mom is at peace knowing we're a happy family now." "Do you think she forgave us for the lost years?" "I'm sure she did. Mothers always forgive, especially when they see their children happy." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave a heartfelt comment below. Do you believe Michael made the right choices? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like the video and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories.